Before we get into the question of the day, which is how people can deal with a layoff, in particular, we're talking about many of the federal employees who've lost their jobs. What the second part of your title, financial sort of counselor, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I help people with how they think about and behave with money. I help them understand how they feel around money and help them develop a healthier relationship with money.
That's good. That's good. I was talking to someone before, people don't always get the connection between money and finances. And, lots of people are either trying to deal with it or not deal with it. And now they're right in the middle of something as traumatic as a job loss. So let's start there. Lots of people are losing their jobs or under the threat of losing their jobs. What are some of the things that they should be doing or thinking about right now?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a hard time for a lot of families. I'm hearing it in my personal life as well as professionally. My clients are dealing with it, including some federal employees. So it very much hits close to home. I think that one thing that people want to realize is that they have skill sets. I think that in the midst of the initial blow of losing your job, which can be a traumatic event, it's easy to forget that there are reasons why I had that job in the first place
Mm.
and why I kept that job. And if you can remember that you have skill sets that allowed you to have this job, then chances are you're probably going to have another. You
Right.
got there, you can get through this, and you can get on to something else. This can be a new chapter. I
Yeah.
think one of the scary pieces for people is what this means financially for me and for my family. And that's really when people need to sit down and pull out the paper and pencil and figure out what their plan is going to be.
Yeah. There's so much I have to want to ask you about this topic. What someone asked me, uh, the importance of mental health or paying for it when you've lost your job. Like, how do
Yeah.
you make that a priority when you got to keep a roof over your head and food on the table? And many people may still have access to some health care, but it's, after probably about a month, if not even sooner, they won't have coverage. So, how do you prioritize paying for something like this
Yes.
when necessities seem to take a priority?
Right. Yeah. I think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a triangle, and at the bottom of that triangle, those are our basic needs. So you need to make sure that you're covering a roof over your head, food, shelter, clothing, that kind of stuff. And then from there, what's the next priority? Things like taking care of your mental health, making sure that you're able to connect with loved ones still, making sure that you're still able to live your life. When it comes to covering the cost of mental health care, what I usually let people know is that they have options. There are low cost options. And even if you lose your insurance coverage with your layoff, if you get, let's say, marketplace insurance, you can find a provider who accepts your insurance there. If you don't have access to insurance, there are also options. For instance, if you live near a major university, oftentimes their psychology department has a clinic that accepts people from the community. There are community mental health agencies that still exist that are low or no cost. There are funds for accessing therapy. For instance, the Loveland Foundation is one. So it is still possible to get that care. And now more than ever, it is crucial because what we know is with a major life transition, like with a layoff, you're more susceptible to experiencing mental health problems like
Mm.
depression, like anxiety, that can be debilitating, that can affect your sleep, your ability to focus, function, participate in your everyday life. And so now more than ever, for some people, it's really important to have access to that care so that they can make it through this difficult transition.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. Can you negotiate with a therapist for the rate? I mean, people, know that healthcare can be very expensive. Is there room for them to say, I've lost my job, but I need help?
Yeah.
Is there something you can do about your fee?
Yes, absolutely. So most therapists offer what's called a sliding scale rate. And so they base their fee, if you need a sliding scale rate, it's based on what your household's income is. And so it can be adjusted down for people who are currently not working. Some people, like myself, offer a flat rate reduced fee slots, and so you may be able to access therapy that way. Some people offer pro bono slots in their caseload. There is another agency called Open Path, and a lot of therapists, myself included, are listed on there. And I believe their sessions right now are between $30 and $70 a session. So there
Wow.
are options
And it's
available.
open path, you said? So
Yes.
they just can go online and search for open path and search it out. That's really good advice. Let's talk about there's so much anxiety. Talk about from the person who's been laid off, and then also people who are connected to that person, maybe a spouse or family members. Listen, I need some help. I got to make an appointment with my own therapist because people are coming at me and asking me questions and what to do, and I don't have the answers for all of it. I mean, in a normal situation, there are rules that are followed and there's a pathway, but things are not happening that way. And so the normal advice that I would give in many cases doesn't even apply, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so chaotic. So I've read studies or understand that losing a job can be as the same as grief.
Mhm.
Can you talk about the stages that folks might go through and what they can do at each of those stages to help them through this troubling time?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to something like this, the rule book has been thrown out of the window. And so people can feel this sense of helplessness because they don't know what they can do. And there is a loss of a sense of control. And that can be really scary for people. What I do like to remind people, and I've been having this conversation all year long in my sessions, I want to remind people that you have made it through hard things before. And so you can make it through hard things again. What are the things that were helpful for those previous hard things? Was it relying on family members? Was it turning to community support? Was it your religious beliefs? Was it that you had financial reserves that you tapped into? Whatever helped you then can help you now. And so, with that said, yes, it is like grief. It is a form of grief. It's a loss. It's a loss of the identity that you had yesterday, and then you get laid off. You've lost that identity. You are no longer whatever your job title was. And there are five stages of grief, as we know from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. What a lot of people get confused about is that you don't go through them one, two, three, four, five. You kind
Mm.
of cycle through them. And so those stages can include denial. It can include you experiencing anger. It can include you trying to bargain and say, well, no, maybe if I do this instead, I won't have to actually lose my job. Or maybe I can do this instead. There is a whole host of emotional stuff that comes up around a transition like this. And with my clients, I have been talking about just allowing yourself to recognize what you're feeling and allow yourself to feel it. And
Yeah.
it will come and it will go. I always say grief is like a wave. It comes in and it goes out. And over time, that wave will get smaller and smaller and smaller.
So the five stages, denial, anger, what are the other three?
So we have sadness, we have acceptance. It's typical for people to also bargain. Um, and so it's common for you to experience all of those things in terms of your emotions. Yes, the sadness, the anger, but there may be frustration, there may be overwhelm, there may be stress, there may be anxiety. It is common for all of those things to happen and to kind of cycle through. You may even experience relief.
Hmm.
Oh, for instance, if that job was really stressful and now you're laid off, yes, I'm sad that I'm laid off and I'm scared, but also, oh, I don't have to go back to that role anymore.
Yes,
All
yes.
of those things are very normal, natural reactions.
What if you feel all of them at the same time? Like, it's like, because I mean, I even lost my job and I feel
So
it almost feels
overwhelming.
physical, right?
Yeah.
Like the body is tensing up and, I get up in the morning and I know I shouldn't do this. We're looking at my phone right away, like what else has dropped or, um,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so overwhelming.
Yes, yes. So there is a very strong connection between our brains and our bodies. What we experience in our brains also directly connects with our bodies. And so that overwhelm, it makes sense because your brain and your body are trying to process something difficult that you are going through. I like to let people know that you want to pay attention to your physical symptoms. If, for instance, you're experiencing muscle tightness or difficulty breathing or chest tightness or an upset stomach or difficulty sleeping, headaches, changes in your appetite, changes in your relations with your intimate partner, all of those are indicators that you are under stress. Your body is trying to deal with stress, and there are things that you can do. So, checking your phone as soon as you wake up is probably not a good idea,
Yeah.
particularly if you're looking at the news or anything else that's potentially distressing. But there are ways that you can take care of yourself. So, deep breathing, allowing yourself to just sit and breathe. And so then your brain gets enough oxygen and it can freak out a little bit less. Because when we're tense and we're stressed, we're not breathing as deeply and our brain is deprived of oxygen. It can help to calm your muscles down. Getting outside, getting fresh air. I know the weather has been all over the
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
but if you need to bundle up, because sunshine and fresh air are very beneficial to us, just like it is for plants. We are plants with more complicated emotions. And also connecting with loved ones, moving your body, engaging in things that you typically would enjoy. So, for instance, if there are board games or puzzles or reading or any of those hobby type things, all of those are just natural ways that we can help to manage our emotions at this time.
Yeah. Anger is the one that I've been hearing the most from people. The sense of unfairness of it, that it's happening so quickly. How can people manage that anger? Um, there just seems, I mean, people wake up and they get an email and say, you don't have your job anymore. Or
Yeah.
then some people showed up and were told, you don't have your job anymore. It just, what can they do to, well, first of all, obviously not act out on that anger, but just manage it.
Yeah. Multiple things. One, allow yourself to be angry. It is okay to be angry. Now, it's not necessarily okay to act on that anger and do things that are extreme, but anger is a natural response to having your things taken away. And in this case, your things being your job, your livelihood. It is normal to have that response. I also like to let people know that it's important to connect with other people who are going through what you're going through
Hmm.
because then you're less likely to feel alone. You can kind of share the anger. You can realize that, oh, I am angry and so are other people. And so it's okay for me to be angry. And then you can use your anger in productive ways. So, what can I do with my anger? Perhaps I can channel that into places in my community that can really benefit from my help into lobbying, into making change happen. Those are productive things that we can do with our anger.
That's really good. How when you are in the spouse or partner or brother or sister of the person going through that, let's say, they can't connect to someone else who's lost their job. What can those of us who haven't, or witnessing this, what can we do to help them? Because, I wrote a column not too long ago about the things that you shouldn't say. So so maybe we could go through what you should and shouldn't do. Like I'm a woman of faith. And people were like, well, gotta make a way, and he got a master plan, and I pray, but I'm just like, I don't know if I want to hear that right now.
Can work for some people, but not for everybody, particularly when you're in the throes of those really strong emotions. A lot of times, what people need most is to just hear that we'll figure this out together. That can feel really reassuring. Also, letting them know this is a lot, and I am here to just listen and help you figure it out.
Yeah,
That reassurance can mean the world to people.
yeah,
Things that you probably shouldn't do, you probably shouldn't rush them to figure out what their next steps are going to be. Because, yes, there is the stress of, okay, we've lost an income, and now what do we do as a household? But just allow at least the first few days for
mm,
the dust to settle, for all of the emotions to begin to arise before you kick into problem solving mode.
mm. That's good. And it's good that you say that. But how, what if it goes on too long? Like, because you've got to have income coming in. And I've heard from spouses saying, well, I'm trying to give them space, but they got to look for a job. But that
Yeah.
person may not be in that mental space for that just yet.
Yeah, that is a real issue. And also, finding a job is not necessarily as easy as it used to be decades ago. So it can take a while. You need to figure out what your game plan is going to be without necessarily stressing your partner. You independently can think up ideas for if this continues beyond, let's say, March, April, May. What can we do then? What can I do then? For instance, can I maybe go into work earlier and start working overtime while my partner is taking care of the kids?
Mm,
Uh, what sacrifices are you willing to make? So perhaps my partner can take a lower paying job in the interim while we're looking for something more stable and sturdy for the long term.
that's good. That's
But
good.
also letting your partner know why you're feeling the stress that you're feeling. It's easy for people when they become anxious about their financial situation to go into attack mode. It can
Mhm.
feel like attack mode for your partner. Instead, go in from a place of vulnerability.
Yeah.
I'm really scared of what's going to happen financially with us. And that is making me worry about when you'll get a job. That's
Ah,
very, very different from, so when are you going to get off the couch, right?
right, right, right. Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really good. It's basically how you approach it, what you say, to
Yes.
not make that person feel, I'm sure they're already feeling pretty anxious. If there are children in a house, how do you suggest you talk to your children? You don't want to scare them, I imagine, but you do want to, should you bring them into the conversation? How much should you share with them?
Yeah.
Particularly if you're in a situation where you might not have any savings and you're not sure how you're going to pay any of the bills.
Yes. Yeah, fair. I always say you want to be transparent with kids, but you want to keep it age appropriate. So I'm not going to sit down with my 2-year-old and explain to my 2-year-old what a layoff is and that we may not have any money for milk and for goldfish. That's
Right.
not age appropriate. With keeping the whole concept of being age appropriate in mind, if you have younger kids, 5 and under, you can let them know well, mom or dad doesn't go to work anymore because the place where we work, they don't need us right now, or they've changed their minds about how many people are going to work there. That's a super simple, age-appropriate way to explain it. If you're having to make adjustments to your budget as a result, then you can explain, so because I'm not working right now, that means that we're not going to go out as much or we're not going to eat out as much. And that's all that they need to know at that age. If you have school age children, you can give them more information than that. But what I want to encourage parents, please do not make your problems your children's problems,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you may not recognize it, but children take on your stress. And even if you are going through all of what you're going through with your children and talking with them about it, even if they don't seem like they are distressed, they still hold on to that in their quiet moments. And I have seen instances where that can turn to the child worrying, having nightmares, then they are losing sleep themselves as well.
Mhm.
So just be matter of fact, explain what's going on, reassure your children that you are going to figure it out, because ultimately that's what children want, is for their parents to be in control, and let them know what changes will be coming.
Yeah. What if they, because teenagers, I've had three, they're just not quite on board. Particularly if they've been in a household where, the spending seemed to be nonstop.
Yeah.
And they're struggling. You got to cancel
Mhm.
cable or streaming services, or they can't go out with their friends, or maybe even pulling them out of sports. And
Mhm.
they're not feeling that.
Yeah.
They're angry at you, even though you didn't lose your job on purpose.
Right. Yeah. Acknowledge their feelings. In the same way that you're acknowledging your feelings, it's difficult on you and it's difficult on everyone around you because it has ripple effects. So you can let them know, I understand that you're disappointed or that you're angry. I would be too. This is a major change for you, and I wish that I did not have to do this. Hopefully, it can be temporary.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you get to the point, this is, all new for a lot of people. The money's running out. You may have to move, or I mean, truth be told, there might be people who might have to be evicted.
Yeah.
What then? Are there some quick tips that you can give people to get through that intense time where the money is just not there?
Yeah. Hopefully, you can come up with a plan before it gets to eviction. If you are seeing the writing on the wall saying that things are running out and we don't seem like we're able to recover from this, it is always best to intervene early.
Mm.
Consider, who in your life can you turn to for added support in this time? What legitimate ways are there for you to make extra money in this time? For instance, ride shares, deliveries, virtual assistants, those kinds of things. And as best as possible, try to find a new place that is safe for you and for your family. I know that what can happen is people can get desperate in times like this, and they can ultimately put themselves in unsafe environments because of the desperation. So, as best as possible, try to keep safe.
Yeah, that's really good advice. That's good advice. This is so very helpful. And sometimes you think, well, of course, this sounds so simple, but it really isn't.
Not.
I mean, breathe and, not to worry. But in the moment, I mean, in good times, it's not easy. And this is certainly not good times for a lot of people. If you, what are some of the top things that you would recommend people if say they're not going to be able to get a therapist. It's not there.
Yeah.
What could they do for themselves to get through the stress of having lost their job?
Yeah. So, in addition to some of the natural mood boosters that I mentioned earlier, getting outside, spending time with loved ones, all of that, if you are not able to access a therapist, there are things that you can still do. For instance, therapists are all over social media. You want to stick with people who are legitimate and licensed, but things like how to cope with anxiety, how to cope with my anger, what to do if I'm experiencing insomnia. There are medical professionals online. All of that information is free. You can also turn to your trusted loved ones to be able to talk through what you're going through. It may not necessarily be the same as therapy, but at least you're not holding it all within yourself. If you don't have a close community like that, journaling is another way that you can process all of the thoughts that you're trying to go through. And when you get it out onto paper, you're less likely to feel overwhelmed because you're not holding all of those thoughts in.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. Um, I guess the last question I would have is when should people be concerned that someone is not properly processing the job layoff, either the person themselves or people in their lives?
Absolutely. That is a really good point. And like I said, this is a time where people are more likely to see increases in depression, anxiety, and so on. So, before I answer that, I do have a little bit of a follow-up that just came to mind about the last question, support groups. There will be and are groups of people online who are experiencing layoffs where you can meet with other people who are going through what you're going through, and they may be sharing resources that you don't know about that may be suitable for you. Um, in terms of paying close attention to warning signs, if someone seems like they are debilitated by their emotions, so difficulty getting out of bed, not really enjoying things that they typically would enjoy, significant changes in weight or sleep, if they are expressing thoughts that they don't want to be here,
Mm,
or if they have shared with you that they have a plan to not be alive anymore, if they are beginning to give away prized possessions, those can all be, or social media can also give little hints if they're posting things that make you nervous or worried about them. Those are all signs that they are really struggling and they need immediate help.
that's
Where to go for that help? 988 is the Suicide Lifeline. You can reach them online as well as by calling. And in addition to that, what I usually tell people is your local emergency room if it's an immediate threat.
That's really good. Yes. So the last question I have, and I know we're ready at time. How can you, if you're watching this all and you've got some resources and you can help, but you know that the people tend to not want to ask for help or they can be very prideful. I've done, especially people who worked all their lives and have done for themselves. What can you do as a person who's trying to say, reach out, I'm here, but
Mhm,
they can't make that move.
mhm,
I know I have a hard time asking for help
mhm.
because I love to give help, but when it comes time for me to ask for it, I'm just not gonna make that call. But
Yeah.
how can we encourage people to reach out, make that call, and ask
Yes.
for help?
If you have loved ones who have lost their job, yes, it's humbling, it's noble of you to say, please let me know if you need anything. But you're right, a lot of people either won't know what they need or have a difficult time asking for what they need. So maybe you can think of things that they may benefit from. So, for instance, if you know that they are trying to job hunt while looking after all of these kids, maybe you can offer some childcare, some time away from the kids. Or maybe you can offer to bring a meal or two meals over, and then they have food that they can freeze. Or you can be looking for jobs on the side for them too. Hey, I saw this and I thought of you. Here's this. Think of things that you can do that can be helpful for them. And
That's
just,
really good.
yeah.
Now, I really like that. Like, be very specific.
Mhm.
In the past, when my husband and I have been helping people, rather than say, "What can we do?" Like with one single mom, she had three kids. We paid her utility bill for a couple of months,
Mhm.
and we certainly kind of asked her, but we was like, you know what? Let's do this for you, and we paid the utility company directly, and we did it for more than a couple of months because we wanted. When you pay for 1 month, before you know it, it's the end of the month. And
Right.
so we wanted to give her a little bit of breathing room. So I think we ended up paying for like 2 or 3 months while
Mhm.
she was looking for another job. And that really, I mean,
It
it
makes a big
it
difference.
made a difference. It
Yeah.
did. It
Yeah,
did. It did.
absolutely. And those are things that in the moment someone may not think of, or if they're thinking of it and they're worried about keeping the lights on, they may not feel like they can ask for help with that.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
okay to offer.
I love that. Yeah. Like, let me take care of your light bill. Or even, hey, I got you for this month's rent, or even half the rent, you
Yeah.
know. I like that. Be specific about helping people. Well, listen, Tracy, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll continue this conversation as all of this unfolds. But I mostly wanted to encourage people. I've been giving them financial tips of what to do, but I really want to be mental health to be at the top of that list, in
Yeah.
addition to budgeting and looking for a job, to
Right.
recognize that this could be, if not address, a mental health crisis.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you.